Fantastic Four First Steps. First we had Fantastic Four in 2005, then we got Fan Four Stick in 2015, and now Fantastic Four First Steps in 2025. Maybe we'll get another Fantastic Four reboot in 10 years. That would be pretty tragic. Isn't it kind of crazy we've waited this long to see Marvel's first family in the MCU? And now they're finally here. I'm not gonna and pretend that I'm this huge Fantastic Four fan or anything, but they're cool, and I like them enough to make the team. I even like them enough to make the team and be happy about it. Unlike a certain other video. I've actually already made a Pedro Pascal body. This Mandalorian I made back in February of 2022, pre the Batman times. Not only that, but I've also made this Joel from the Last of Us HBO show. So this is my third Pedro. Council reads, I wonder if I'll ever make another Pedro Pascal. I think the only way that I would is if the DCU snatches him up. I imagine most people would forget about Maxwell Lord, especially after Superman. Hear me out. Pedro Pascal for Blue Beetle, like the Ted Kord one. I tend to make my Pedro Pascals with this kind of darker, more caramel color. The sheet of felt has this weird hard spot on it that I'm going to try and avoid. I don't know what made me do this originally, because he's about as white as John Bernthal, whom I actually made with the white that I give everybody. To be honest, I like it better this way, and it'll give the Fantastic Four some more visual distinctions between each other. Not to mention, Pedro Pascal also has like a Chilean background, I think that's how you say it. So I think this is fine. I know in the comics they're all white, but let's be honest, does it really matter? Do they all need to be white? In my opinion, only two characters should be the same race, Sue and Johnny, and that's only because they're siblings, and I don't really care what that race is. Then obviously you'd think like, oh, what about Fantastic? What about it? Isn't she adopted in that movie? The movie was so dumb, like everything they did just sucked. That movie is a very bold and clear example of a dead era of superhero media, where the people making the projects didn't care about the source material and thought it was just stupid. Speaking of that, the era that it came out in, the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, was an absolute miracle. With all the rejection of like the source material and making fun of stuff for being goofy, Raimi's Spider-Man was so open arms with all that and doing the silly stuff. Thank God we got that. On another note, Fantastic is so trash. I remember seeing it in theaters when I was 8, and it went from 10 people in the theater to just me and my mom. Like, I remember more about just running up and down the rows in the theater and swapping seats throughout the movie more than I actually remember watching it. Anyway, I finish up on the hair. I think in retrospect I should have maybe used a darker brown for it instead. I sew the head onto the body. Then with it nearly done, I grab a Sharpie and lightly color on some stubble. Then I take this silver paint and paint the sides of the head, because the way it dried, I had to go back and add a second layer. Now for the costume. For the blue base of the costume, I used this material, which funny enough is the same blue as I used on Joel's shirt. I would say that I'm actually kind of lucky this time because the costumes are generally simple, but they're actually not. I was going to do a very basic, minimal detail cut until I noticed the seam lines on the pants, which I missed. So I'm going back and cutting them up so I can throw them in. Despite this, I'd still say the costumes are generally simple. They're definitely a lot different than most of the MCU costumes out there. To give Marvel some credit, they've started making costumes that aren't that over-detailed. That is to say they've had some bad ones recently, like those Ant-Man the Wasp costumes from Quantumania. Those were just absolutely dreadful. Or the Thor Love and Thunder costume. I didn't like that one. Apart from the cape. The cape was beautiful, but it was the best part of the costume. It was beautifully crafted, beautifully put on. It looked pristine in every shot. But the rest of that suit sucked. Captain America's new costume is neat, but I like the old one more. The Thunderbolts all have like very mid costumes. I like US agents. That's pretty much it. I like the Daredevil Born Again Season 1 and 2 costumes. Sentry looks good. Namor looks good. He's pretty hard to mess up, I think. Anyway, this isn't about other MCU characters. I think I'll just talk about the actual costumes that are in this movie. I actually really like these. For the Fantastic Four, my personal preference for their character design is kind of future, techie, weird look. I like the over-design look. Like in Marvel Rivals. Marvel Rivals has fantastic designs for all of the four. Like, yeah, they're super over-designed, but that's what I like for the Fantastic Four. They look very unique and cool. But in this movie, their costumes are brutally simple, which I actually think is good. I think they fit really well into the time period that the movie is trying to capture in its setting. I also think another really good choice by the costume department was making it look kinda astronaut-like, because the four are all astronauts, space explorer people. That's what a lot of Fantastic Four comics are. They're space explorers going around discovering things. So it's really cool to see that considered when designing their costumes. I think now is a better time than any to mention that I'm doing this in March. The movie doesn't come out for like 4 more months. I'm way ahead of schedule. I want to clarify though that because it's currently March, I have a very little reference material for these suits. Mainly a single shot in one trailer. Hopefully more come out when I'm making these that'll give me better sense of reference. The boots and the gloves both seem to have this black rim at the top of them. I'd recommend, when adding this element, that you should have everything cut out first. I know when I do it, I try to cut as many things out as possible so I can accurately place each of them onto the costume. I think for me this is the most repetitive part of the 4. Looking at the other designs, I don't have to do this on the thing, but the other 3, I found this to be the most repetitive part. It's not like it's even that hard, they're just all the same. I guess the belt is also a bit repetitive, but not nearly as much as this. Mostly because it's a lot easier to do. You know, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, or even a good one, but I kinda like the Reed characterization, where he's just a jerk. Like, as I've gotten to know more about the Fantastic Four, I've realized he's not really like that. Like, he's not perfect, but he's not that much of a jerk. Which I think is fine, I don't want him, like, beating his wife or anything. But, I'm not really against those characters. Like, don't get me wrong, I can recognize it's bad. I'm just saying, like, Hank Pym in the comics, for example. I of course mean that in the sense of not all characters should be perfect, and I think these are interesting different types of character flaws. Again, I should state, I don't think abuse is okay or anything. I'm not advocating for it. I'm not being like, oh yeah, no, this is fine, what's the problem? Obviously, abuse is not okay. I know that. But these are fictional characters, this isn't real. I just mean, it's like an interesting story to explore. Not with Reed though. I don't think Reed should hit his wife. I like the idea he's just not socially aware. Like a passive-aggressive Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory. The show everyone loves. Yes, you, the viewer. On the note of learning more about the 4, I've realized that Reed and Sue have a pretty solid marriage. Like, it's not perfect, but I mean specifically in the cheating category, as of right now, Sue has never left or cheated on Reed with Namor. Rather than it being like a love triangle kind of thing, where Namor is super suave and appealing to Sue, it's like a Shamik Moore and Haley Steinfeld thing. He's always just chasing and lusting over her and constantly getting rejected. Like, yeah, there's those comic panels you see of them kissing or like, you know, something happening. Those aren't real. Like, yes, the comic panel is real, but in the specific event of the story, that doesn't happen. I think Doom tricks Reed into seeing it one time. I don't remember the specifics of the story, but Doom does something to trick Reed, and as soon as Reed sees Sue hooking up with Namor, he's like, oh, this isn't real, and he shoots Doom in the face, and it's a Doom bot, and none of it was real. That's it for Mr. Fantastic. I'm actually pretty happy with how he turned out, despite my limited references. Here's my Mr. Fantastic with the other Pedros that I've made. I like how much taller I've started making these guys compared to a few years ago. And here's him with Deadpool and Wolverine, because that video did really well and I'm hoping having them here and or saying their names will do something for the algorithm. Invisible Woman! Being the only woman in her body is a little different. Only a little. I'm gonna skip over making most of it because I just showed it. For the head, I start with these two pieces. The head is always really important to me, as specifically in this case, where they have no mask. Even in a face covering as simple as Captain America, it helps a lot, because it's covering the eyes, one of the most important parts of a person's face. I will get a character like Yelena or Red Guardian every once in a while, where they just don't look fully like the actor to me. For the face, I color the makeup on with markers, just like real women do. Then I cut out the hair. I used a really light, almost white color because she's a really light blonde. I sew the back on normally, then sew the other two pieces by the roots first. Then I fold them and sew them down. That still doesn't look good, so I cut out more pieces of hair to sew to the top of the head. So, I did not cook. She just does not look like Vanessa Kirby to me. I try to pull the face together with some thread to fake her cheekbones as a last-ditch effort to save this. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work for me. I noticed some blush, so I do that too, but it doesn't really save it either. You know what? It's fine. Moving on, I'm just gonna finish her body. I cut out her privates, then sew them on and stuff them. Now for Sue's costume. I'm gonna take a different approach than I did for Mr. Fantastic. He's fine, but a big part of his detail hinges on the seam lines, and I'm just not happy with how they turned out. I cut out the material too small and stretched it too much while sewing it on. So for Sue, I want to try and sew the base together before putting it on. I'm not gonna do this, but I'm cleaner with the stitches, and I'm better. You wanna know something? I hate when they call her the Invisible Woman. Because as a woman, her struggles are not invisible to me. I am a feminist. I see you ladies, and I stand with you. I'd like to say that I'm 6'5", 18 years old, and have what looks like abs, but I'm not quite there yet. I think of everybody on the team, Sue has my favorite costume. I really like the white around the neck area. I also like the turtleneck. Which, I mean, they all have, but I like it on Sue the most. Then maybe I'd say Reed's is my second favorite because of how simple it is. Then I'd say Human Torch because, again, I like the white. Plus, the way it runs down his arms looks really good. On a different note, I gotta ask, what's with all the women hate in Marvel? This isn't like a feminist joke, like the one I just made. This is like after seeing the second trailer for the Fantastic Four, I see like so many videos of people just hating on mainly Silver Surfer. But like I see Invisible Woman catch a lot of strays too. Like I saw a video in this, I can't curse. I saw a video and this loser was like whining about Silver Surfer being a woman. Naturally. These people have nothing better to do. Despite her being her own character and in fact not just a gender swap. But they wouldn't know that because all they do is get mad and complain without even trying to understand what's going on or the nuances or just the story in general or who the characters are. Like Captain Marvel. She gets so much unjust hate and like character critique as if she's not specifically written to be that way. Like all these people make all these videos, but as soon as a woman demonstrates a flaw in her character, they jump on it like it's bad writing, when it's deliberate. Even then, all they complain about is that she's like really confident in herself, which is like, what's wrong with that? Why is that a character flaw? They're like, oh, it makes her unlikable. So like every guy who's confident in themselves is unlikable as a character because of that? No. That's stupid. I should just make a video on Captain Marvel. Anyway, I saw this video of this guy complaining, and there was one thing specifically I remember him saying that I thought was dumb. And he's like, so there's gonna be 2 women conspiring to take down Galactus? Like, what? What does that mean? There's 3 other guys standing right there. Silver Surfer works for Galactus anyway. Like, I know in the comic, Norrin Rad does, like, this because he wants to save his family and his life and everything and his planet. But she's a different character. It doesn't mean she's entirely good. I think in the comics, she's, like, more villainous anyway. I hate these kind of people who are just blindly hating on anything they see. All they ever want is a strong white dude who can do anything and hates women as much as they do. Like, just admit it, bro. You like men. You just want men. It's okay. Being gay is accepted now. You don't need to hide it. Anyway, I'm working on the belt now. Something a little tough here is that most of these costumes are pretty similar to the point where it gets a little boring making all of them. But it can't be as bad as my Shazam family. Those guys were tough. It was basically the same costume like 6 times with almost no differentiation. This at least has differentiation, it was just colors. That still took me less time than Thunderbolts, but it was grueling. If you want to see them, I have them up on my Instagram. I made them before I started making videos on how to make these. I probably still wouldn't have done that, like if I was. Too much effort for what it's worth. So I locked in super hard and just made this entire character in like 12 hours. In total, it probably took me closer to 7 because I spent a lot of time in that getting distracted by food and my phone. Either way, I'm actually pretty proud of myself for being able to do this so easily. I'm fairly proud of her, even if I think her likeness isn't captured well. Hopefully I do better on... So I start off once again with a body. Joseph Quinn is a fairly normal body. Nothing super muscular, but he's also not as scrawny as me. So the body's fairly easy to make. The head also follows the exact same structure as all my other heads. For his hair, it's also kept super simple. It's 3 pieces and a top, similar to my Wolverine. I gotta say, I love the wig they give him in this movie. It's so stupid. Which I think lends to his character. Like, not to say he's stupid, I don't think he's stupid. But I think this version we see in the movie will be more like dorky and super cool, you know? Well, I say dorky, but what I mean is like less outgoing and less confident as the Chris Evans one. Which is fine. I mean, it could give you a reason to watch the old Fantastic Four movies. If you dare. This may disappoint some of my viewers, but I am making Human Torch as his actual, like, Joseph Quinn human normal look, and not the Flame On one. To be fair, I think it would be pretty easy to make if you wanted to do it on your own. Just make him orange and add some fire details. I didn't mention it, but I actually quite like the likeness I did. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it turned out well enough. No notes. I think if you want to do Johnny's fire effect, I'd recommend getting an orange mesh, then just making it a layer over the finished Johnny. Then, of course, you could sew or glue on some flame effects, maybe some white eyes. I don't end up doing this, but I think it's a good idea. In fact, I might do it in the future. I will say, if you're gluing, don't glue it while it's on the body, or you're just going to glue it to the body. You're working with mesh, it will bleed through. I'd say easily, making the shirt on the costume is the hardest part. I may have made it look kinda easy just now, but it's really not that simple. Well, I'm hyping it up a lot, but it's just connecting the shoulder. Like, where the white pieces connect. It's a lot easier than the Spider-Man costumes I've been making lately. Those ones, I need to go all the way up the neck, which is much more difficult. I don't like doing those ones. I don't think I've done it in a video yet, but don't you worry. When we get to Spider-Man Brand New Day in like a year from now, you bet I'll be doing that. Speaking of Brand New Day, I can't wait for that. I know a lot of people don't, but me personally, I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. He's easily the character I am the most interested in the MCU right now. Not my favorite Spider-Man, however, but that's just because I like all the Spider-Man. I don't dislike any of them. I mean, I guess it's unfair to say he's the character I'm the most interested in. Daredevil exists. But I'd also argue that's not fair because that's largely carried by the peak that is Netflix's Daredevil. I think it's funny I should bring up Spider-Man in the Human Torch section, one of the Human Torch's best friends. And then even more funny, I bring up Daredevil while talking about Spider-Man, one of Spider-Man's best friends. I can't stop! Somebody hold me back! Anyway, yeah, I love MCU Spider-Man. I was really refreshed seeing him. Like, watching all the other MCU movies, then I'm like, okay, you know, I like all these characters and whatever. But then I finally get to the one where I'm like, yeah, this is the guy I want to see. I almost felt that with Deadpool, but not quite. I like Deadpool, but comic Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds Deadpool are two very different characters, and not a lot of mainstream audiences realize that. Which I don't expect them to. They're in a Deadpool movie. You watch the movie, and you're like, oh, this must be what the character's like. When, you know, that's not necessarily the case. Like anyone who watched Ms. Marvel and they went, oh, she's Green Lantern. No. That's stupid. You're wrong. For Johnny's belt, it's actually super different and extremely complex. I am, of course, lying. There's almost nothing new about this one. Since it's one of the last things to add, I make the neck piece. This is the same as all the others, and it's sewn the same, believe it or not. Then I grab my logo and sew that on too. All that's left is to draw on the logo and paint him. I, for the third time, use the blue Sharpie to draw the logo on. I think so far, while it's good, Sue's is still the best. Next for the painted details. I actually keep my paint in a bin, which is next to my window, which is really stupid because the direct sunlight was heating up the bin, which caused the paint to heat up, which caused it to overflow out. That actually caused me to put too much paint on and repeatedly mess up on the painting sections. So here he is, complete. Honestly, I'm kind of breezing through these guys. Making Sue on Saturday and now making Human Torch on Wednesday. Can't imagine how easy the thing would be. The Thing! Being the only rock person, his body is a little different. Now, this is who I'm actually excited to make in this video. While making the video, my excitement almost changed to Invisible Woman, but nah, this guy's the goat. Sewing the body together is pretty easy. I was a little worried at the beginning because I wasn't totally confident in the cutout. Like, I really enjoy making bigger or just much different guys. It's really nice to make him normally sized or proportioned, dude. Like my Arkham Bane or Absolute Batman. I've got more examples, but those were the first two that came to mind. You know, I've only ever made one Hulk. This lame Hulk from Avengers Endgame back in 2023. I hope they make him cool again so I can do a better body. So I've messed up. The second trailer for the movie just released today being April 17th, and let's just say I missed a few details on my previous guys and just straight up did things wrong. It's not that bad, however. Just some details here and there, no biggie. I think my work's still passable. I'm going to take a moment to go back and fix some of the details. So, first thing I messed up on, the Thing's size. He's actually like 6 feet tall. He looks about as tall as Johnny. I can't exactly fix that, which is fine. Other than that, one of the first things I noticed was that the belts weren't solid white. They're segmented into squares on the back. I didn't have a reference for the back before this trailer, so for the finishing touches, as I'll call them, I'm just going to do them on one guy because this applies to all four. I start with the 4 logos on the soles. It's a easy white circle sewn to the bottom of the boot, then using my trusty Sharpie to draw the logo on. Then the belt. I can't do much I actually feel like doing, so I bust out the Sharpie of instant problem solving again to draw where the segment should be. Then I paint the black lines on. That looks about good enough, which is exactly what we strive for on this channel. Again, these apply to all of the members so far. Now, with the details done, I can get back to the Thing. Now for the detailing on the head. The front of his face sticks out a bit, so I decided to make a piece for that. When I add the rocky texture, it shouldn't be as noticeable. Then, in a very rare occasion, I add a nose. Then I cut out the unibrow and sew it on. I don't sew the side that connects to the eyes, because I like the way it looks without it. So originally I wanted to make his rocky texture by individually cutting out and sewing in the pieces of rock. But between not wanting to drive myself insane and possibly being institutionalized, I realized that it probably was just a bad idea. Because while I was paying more attention to the forehead, I noticed the mouth and all of those little rocks around his face. If you look at some of these, some of them are just simply too small to realistically sew on by hand. So I need to take a different approach. I'm just going to draw him on the Sharpie. Here he is! In all his glory! At first I didn't like it that much, but I think I did a pretty good job at gaslighting myself into thinking it's not that bad. I know I didn't do the whole body, I didn't feel like it. He's covered anyway, so I can always do it another day. I mean, eventually it's gonna fade a bit, and it's gonna look good. I hope. It'll look good. Maybe. He's hard to do, okay? For the costume, I start the same as the last 3 pans. Anyway, I did a bit of off-camera mining with this. With more of the body filled out, and I can confidently say that the gaslighting is definitely working. Something I realized with the new trailer is I don't think I actually needed to do the seams in the legs, which is so awesome. At least I can sew the pants with less effort. Kind of funny how if I had just waited like 2 weeks to start these guys, I would have done a lot better. To be fair, I'm always going to do better with more reference when I'm closer to the movie and have more trailers. I actually really respect the decision to give him a shirt in this film. It's not a look you often see for the Thing. If I remember correctly, he wears a shirt on his first costume in the early Fantastic Four comics. He also has a big metal helmet, but I think they'll probably be shedding that for this film. It seems like he's generally more accepted in his Rocky form in this film, at least by children. Like, he's casually walking around on the street and just lifting cars. I think a lot of people forget that Ebon Moss was also in Netflix's Punisher series, which, as of Daredevil technically being canon, at least I consider it canon. It's crazy to think about the implications of Daredevil being canon. Like, the fact that something like that rooftop debate scene was happening at the same time that the Guardians of the Galaxy were fighting Ego the Living Planet. Like, it's just crazy to me to think those two events are coinciding within the same time of each other. Something like that is one of the things that makes shared universes so cool. I think something in my mind that makes it so crazy is just the way these things are written and made. Like, obviously Guardians has a much higher budget and more CGI than Daredevil, but that's one of the things in my opinion that makes it feel so different. It's something I wish they'd do more in shared universes. Like, I love when projects are super distinct. Like, I know the Batman's not going to be in the same universe as Superman. The idea of those two movies existing together, and they're so, like, distinct from each other in tone and style and just about everything, but they exist coincidingly, is so cool, and something I hope they do with more of the DCU movies, which I'm sure they will. As I work on the last details, I make the neck piece. These are pretty much the same as all the other members. That is, with the exception of the cuffs. Those are super easy to make. Just one simple cut that's folded up the arm. Something I like, that I think comes across the most out of the 4 on this one specifically, is how snug his costume looks. Despite being all rocks, he just looks so comfortable in that sweater. The look of the sweater really works for me in this movie. I am always amused by the idea these costumes conform to their powers. Like Reed just used some magic fabric or something. For the painted details, I naturally start out with my beloved Sharpie, drawing the 4 logo. Then I paint the rest of the detail. I kinda went crazy on this one, just doing a lot more. Like the prominent lines on his suit. Unfortunately, I don't have a blue that I think quite matches the fabric used. With that, we have it. The Thing. The Thing is finished. In all his rocky glory. And that's it for the Fantastic Four. I gotta say, I did this way faster than I'd initially expected to. I purposely started working on this in March because I thought it would take a while, similar to Thunderbolts. But no, I finished in a few weeks. I actually finished on April 19th, my birthday. That's right guys, I spent my 18th birthday inside working on a sewing video rather than, I don't know, going outside with friends or celebrating it in the slightest. I'm gonna stop thinking about it now as to not feel sad. As always, if you decided to make your own inspired by this video, I highly encourage you to send me a picture over on my Instagram. It's the most likely place for me to see what you've made. I always love seeing what people make based off these videos. Anyway, have a nice day. Goodbye.